cloudlims.com. I'm excited to moderate this event today. In the next 30 minutes, our speaker, Martha Hernandez, will unveil 7 success factors for cannabis extraction lab setup. Before beginning her professional career as a scientist with us, Martha spent 12 years working as an analytical chemist in various industries, from clinical diagnostics to forensics in Mexico. Martha loves to attend trade shows as she gets the opportunity to meet and interact with new people and thought leaders from different industries. Getting the job done in less time is a priority for her personally, as there was a time when she would spend over 14 hours per day manually filling in the logs and typing the results, wasting her valuable time and making mistakes due to exhaustion. When she's not traveling for work, Martha loves to dance and play with her pups, Homer and Benito. Martha loves to pose with her pups and share pics on her social media accounts. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few points so that you know how to participate in today's webinar. All attendees are in mute mode throughout this webinar. This is an interactive webinar, so we encourage you to ask questions anytime during the presentation by entering them in the chat box. The questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. We'll take as many questions as time permits. We do want to keep today's presentation on time, so if you are unable to answer your questions today, we'll answer them by email. Now let's welcome Martha Hernandez.
Thank you for the introduction, Myrna. Hello, my name is Martha Hernandez, and I would like to welcome to my presentation in which I will unveil for you 7 success factors for a cannabis extraction laboratory. So, if we talk about the rapid growth in the cannabis industry, well, the cannabis extraction is considered one of the fastest growing sectors. In states where obviously cannabis is legal, there has been an increased demand for cannabis concentrates. So in this talk, I will give you an overview of cannabis extraction and internal testing. I will give you also factors to consider when setting up a cannabis extraction facility, and I will tell you how an IT solution can digitize operations and support regulatory compliance, make you this setting up easier. So let's start by defining what extraction is. As most of us know, the bioactive molecules in the cannabis are the cannabinoids, and others are the terpenes, flavonoids, and well, there are several molecules. These are found in the trichomes that are present in the buds of the cannabis plant. We will define extraction as the process of separating the THC, the CBD, and other important chemical compounds from these trichomes and converting them into usable forms for medicinal or recreational use. The result product is called a cannabis concentrate. And there are different separation methods. They can be classified in 2 broad categories. One can be the solvent-based extraction, and the other one can be the solventless separation method. Well, the extraction process influences the potency and purity of cannabis products offered to consumers. And well, a poor extraction process will result in an inferior cannabis extract in terms of taste or in terms of potency or their appearance and of course the purity levels. So the cannabis extraction market across the globe was valued at $9.2 billion in 2021. In this, and well, it is expected to hit 23.7 billion by 2027. So the quality assurance here is critical to sustaining the ever-evolving cannabis industry because, well, the samples will be more and more, and the laboratories and, of course, the staff will not be enough. So setting up a cannabis extraction facility can be really expensive at first, but checking these values can be advantageous in the long run. So, well, some of the benefits of an in-house testing at a cannabis extraction labs includes that it reduces compliance testing failures. Also, it helps you to maintain the quality standards. It saves re-extraction costs and assures product safety. It increases profit margins since it saves resources and times, and it provides a faster turnaround for test results. So you don't have to wait until the results come back from a third-party testing lab. There is always a bottleneck on the extraction facilities. So now the big question is, what factors to contemplate before setting up a cannabis extraction lab? Well, establishing an extraction laboratory is not an easy task, of course. It requires considering several factors to maximize the productivity and, of course, minimizes the losses. It is essential to consider the following areas. For example, the location, the regulatory compliance, the staff management, the waste management, the staff safety, supply chain management, and equipment selection and management. So let's start with the location. Location is always of paramount importance for any type of business, not only the extraction facilities of cannabis. The first but very obvious thing is to make sure that you are in a state where cannabis is legal, of course, to set up this extraction facility. You will then need to apply for a security compliance license that allows you to operate a cannabis extraction facility. So many states have placed a limit of the number of licenses that can be used to cannabis businesses. And each state has set its own rules regarding where a cannabis business can be located. And this will be like this until the federal law came. So in general, a cannabis extraction facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of an elementary school or a secondary school or a playground or a church. So the local governments can increase or decrease the permit proximity to such institutions. The next one that do a cannabis extraction facility must comply with the regulations that apply to the manufacturing and production of consumer goods to ensure that the safety of workers and of course the end consumers is ensured. So here are some that have a priority for the extraction facilities. And these are the current good manufacturing practices, the National Fire Protection Association, local fire codes, and occupational standards for health and safety, or OSHA. Let's start with the first compliance, and this is the cGMP. These regulations dictate the minimum requirements for facility, processes, and controls used in the manufacturing, processing, and packaging of pharmaceutical products. So the goal of these GMP compliances is to ensure that products sent to market contain the ingredients and concentration that they claim to have and that they are safe to use. So some of the GMP requirements are follow good documentation practices, which include managing clear, concise, and legible records, recording the data entries when all the activities are performed, and implementing a document management system to ensure data integrity and quick retrieval of current and archived records and data. So this is all of the documents. So keep this in mind. Another GMP compliance can be routinely monitor and control internal temperature, humidity, and pressure of all the facilities, implement effective quality control processes, clean the areas, all the surfaces must be smooth and impervious to prevent the accumulation of particles and of course the microorganisms, making them easy to clean and disinfect. You have to regulate the airflow to prevent any microbial contamination, and of course implement procedures to effectively handle consumer complaints and take measures to prevent their recurrence. So we have a lot of flammable liquids in the laboratory. So the National Fire Protection Association, or the NFPA, strives to eliminate injury, loss, or death due to fire and electrical hazards. The NFPA published codes that and standards, of course, that intend to minimize these risks. The cannabis extraction facilities need to follow the NFPA regulations to prevent any fire or electrical hazards. So there is a specific NFPA code, the 45, that is the standard on fire protection for laboratories that use chemicals. So it provides an universal guidelines for the safe storage of flammable and combustible materials in the lab. And this code also determines the hazard classification of labs based on the quantity of these flammable materials. So this chapter 4 of the NFPA 45 categorized labs in 4 fire hazard groups based on the amount of flammable and combustible material that they have. And it is important to ensure that all the extraction facilities are designed to meet the specification of these codes. So the next compliance is OSHA. This stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The cannabis extraction lab must comply with OSHA regulations and record keeping requirements. OSHA ensures safe and healthy working conditions by providing training, education, and assistance to the staff. And some of the OSHA codes that cannabis extraction facilities needs to follow are the one that I show you the slides. And some of them are to recording and reporting occupational injuries and illnesses, fire prevention plans, flammable liquids, hazardous waste operation and emergency response, and the personal protective equipment, general equipment. And of course, the annual refreshment training is strongly recommended. I remember that the first thing that I learned in each laboratory where I worked like 12 years, it was to handle a fire extinguisher with a firefighter uniform, with a cask and everything, and any equipment. And since I'm a small person, they always told me that I looked like a legal firefighter. So it was the annual joke. But yes, the annual refreshment is strongly recommended to all of the employers. Remember the training. So staff management. The staff must be trained on all the facility hazards and receive the first aid measures in the event of any accident. The staff must sign that they have received training on it. So what is a lab without their staff? Well, it's nothing. It's just a bunch of expensive instruments and reagents. That's why human capital is the most important resource for any organization. Therefore, it is essential to ensure that the health and safety of all the human resources, is ensured, of course. So the training must enable the staff to identify, classify, and characterize all the types of hazardous waste. And additionally, the training must enable the staff to safely dispose of hazardous and non-hazardous waste. So, waste management. Every employee must be adequately trained on the possible routes of exposure to this hazardous and the accompanying signs and symptoms of this exposure. There should be SOPs that stipulate how to handle these potential hazards and what to do in the event of any accidental exposure. So the employees also need the necessary PPP to use these hazardous chemicals, the protective personal equipment, and of course emergency actions plans that helps the staff to recognize the potential hazard and when they might occur and how to handle them safe. And I am speaking about all the staff, not the only ones that are in the labs. Every secretary and every person that are in that facility. The waste must be properly classified and characterized to determine if it's hazardous or non-hazardous. And the timing of this training is crucial. The employees must receive the training as soon as they join to the facility before beginning any work that may expose to these hazardous materials, of course. So there was a story that was in an instruction laboratory. One of the newly hired didn't know where to place a residual solvent. I remember it was ethanol, methanol, or something, and place it in the first reservoir he saw. So the auditors came and they realized that the solvent was in the wrong reservoir. So the lab has not conformities due to poor training and, of course, poor waste management. So that, and not only the non-conformities, there can be fines from the environmental associations and, well, big problem. So this is why it's important that labs have a detailed staff training program and, of course, follow it. Staff safety, of course, we don't get tired to repeating that the safety of the workers in an extraction facility is vital. It should be based on the types of risks each member to staff is exposed to in the line of duty, of course. And a job hazard analysis, or GHA, is necessary to assess risk and implement measures to prevent accidents and injuries. The next point is supply chain management. This refers to the flow of goods between departments, businesses, companies, and locations. It includes the management and monitoring of the movement and storage of all the raw materials, the intermediate materials, and of course the finished products. So this supply chain management includes end-to-end order fulfillment from seed to shelf. It is essential to ensure the traceability of all products and all the time. And here is the key to success for any extraction laboratory, for any analytical laboratory. In case of contamination, it is easy to trace the source and take take the corrective measures in time to safeguard the health of the consumers, of course. So the supply chain management means tracking raw materials from the moment they are received in the extraction facility until they are released as a cannabis extract or as a final product. A laboratory information management system, or a LIMS, is useful to supporting this change management at any extraction facility. The next one is equipment selection and management. Well, we know that equipment in a laboratory can be very expensive. I'm talking about millions of dollars, maybe. The type of equipment you purchase is one of the factors that will determine the efficiency of your extraction process. So it is important to select equipment, well, good, fine. But before buying any equipment, you should do a thorough research on pros and cons of each piece of equipment. You have to select the equipment that fits your specific budget, goals, and requirements. So before deciding on extraction equipment, ask yourself the next question. Which extraction method do you prefer to use and what products do you want to make? Then choose your equipment accordingly. So some of the equipment that you may need for your cannabis extraction facilities can be an LPG extraction equipment, a CO2 extraction equipment, or an evaporate process equipment. This will be based on your method that you choose, or the method that you choose. So all the equipment in the laboratory should be on Writer's laboratory listed. It has to be UL list. And another type of equipment that you may need in your extraction facilities can be vacuum ovens that should be listed also on the NRTL, and some other can be refrigerators. These should have to be lab safe or flammable safe. The residential type of refrigerators are not rated by the manufacturer for flammable liquid storage or processing, so they are not recommended, of course. So it is possible to keep up with all the regulations, requirements, and specifications that come with setting up a cannabis extraction lab? The answer is yes. Operational digitization can make things easy. So a LIMS, also known as a laboratory information management system, helps automate workflows and improve efficiency and productivity in an extraction facility, streamline in-house testing processes, guarantee that the final extract produced are potent and free of impurities, and also LIMS can help to manage the SOPs. Also to manage the staff, to track samples and lab inventory, to schedule equipment calibration, and supports compliance with regulations. Let's see how. So with a LIMS, you can monitor the sample processing status, enforce standard operating procedures, and track deviation from the specified SOPs. In other words, you can manage all the workflow in your extraction facility with a LIMS. You can see the status of any sample and who has it and why he hasn't extracted yet. So everything with a LIMS automatically. You can also maintain sample traceability. We know that extraction laboratories need to trace every gram of each sample. So with a LIMS, you can track the entire sample life cycle right from the time that a sample enters in your facility until it is disposed. So in this image, you can see that we have a sample and it is transferred from the admin to the user 1, then the user 2 to 3, and lastly to the user 4. So you can see exactly where is the sample, who has it, and why he has it. The next one, it's you can manage your documents, of course. Your staff needs to know and to manage the documents, track the revision history, and assign access privilege to the staff based on their roles. And well, the next one is manage staff training and competency. Your staff needs to be trained. We repeated all of the presentation on each step of the extraction process, the lab safety, the waste management, the equipment, calibration, maintenance, inventory, everything. So here you can see training programs in staff safety, equipment calibration, waste management, and you can see that some of the staff did well, some of the staff did not that well. So a LIMS can generate a custom training and competency metrics. So these metrics helps to the lab managers to quickly visualize the competency levels of their staff based on the scores, and they can assign analytical tasks to the trained staff and provide additional training to the incompetent staff. And well, this is really helpful because we know that one of our customers was working at a cannabis extraction lab. So when he returned from the lunch break, he resumed his work. So while he was extracting his samples, he smelled propane gas and observed an electric spark from the nearby piece of equipment. So there was a big explosion, and the employee got very bad injuries. He was hospitalized and received treatment for second and third degree burns that he sustained over most of the upper body. So the lab, after this terrible accident, understood the importance of staff training and staff safety. So they now use LIMS for managing staff training and for ensuring that all the staff in the lab has undergone this training. So the extraction labs can manage also the instrument and calibration and maintenance. You can schedule an instrument calibration, manage maintenance data, and assign instruments to the competent staff. So here you can track not only each instrument, but the subcomponent of each instrument, along with its maintenance and calibration details. There is a built-in alert system, sorry, that will inform the lab managers a preset number of days ahead of any needed maintenance or calibration. So also the cannabis extraction lab performs testing of several samples on a day-to-day basis. There are tons of samples, and the manual transfer of the analytical data for instruments to a LIMS is error-prone and reduces laboratory efficiency, of course. So for minimizing this test turnaround time and for maintaining data integrity, it is important to automate the data transfer process. So a good LIMS can be seamlessly integrated with analytical instruments for bidirectional data transfer. So this can help to reducing turnaround time and eliminating chances of transcription errors. So with this instrument integration, an ERP collects, stores, manages, and all the critical business metrics and support business operation of extraction laboratories. This ERP also helps address traceability and compliance issues faced by any extraction facilities. And LIMS can also be integrated with a third-party software, such as billing software, to streamline business operation. So in conclusion, setting up a cannabis extraction facility starts with finding an appropriate location, ensuring regulatory compliance. Then you have to ensure the work safety, efficiently managing staff, inventory, and waste, and the careful selection of equipment. A laboratory software for or a LIMS can ties these factors together to ensure a smooth workflow and maximum productivity of any facility. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Martha, for the informative presentation. I request all attendees to please take a moment to fill out the survey that you see on your screen. We are now going to begin answering questions. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the chat box. We have some interesting questions, so I'll move straight onto these. The first question is, are there differences in processing hemp and cannabis?
Well, that's an excellent question, and yes, there are differences because, well, cannabis and hemp need different processes to get different efficiencies because the yield of the cannabinoids in cannabis is higher than hemp because hemp contains less oleoresin than cannabis. So to put this in another way, like simple words, you will need more biomass or plant material from hemp to extract similar amounts of oil, and that's the biggest difference.
Thank you, Martha. The next question is, how many staff members do I need to start an extraction facility?
Well, it will depends. Almost all every question in this topic will depends on your facility size, efficiency, and design. With a staff trained in optimizing the workflow through all the processes from centrifugation, refrigerant, ethanol, filtration, evaporation, decarboxylation, of course, and distillation. So I said that the minimum number will be three if they have experience. So I always recommended to hire a chemist. They have all the knowledge in this processes. So it will be easy to train this.
Thank you. Attendees, you can still post your questions, so go ahead and post your questions. The next question is, how can a LIMS help my extraction facility testing lab in supply chain management?
Great question. We didn't see it in presentation. We didn't have to time to put a slide about this, but a good LIMS has this lab inventory management, and this is really useful to track all the reagents, all the standards, all the supplies, the starting materials. We have we can put here a lot number. We can put also the expiration date. We have the quarantine quantity, usage with test, and threshold reorder quantity for receiving alerts when nearing depletion levels. So you will never be out of stock of any reagent, of any kit, or any standard, for example.
The next question is, oh, this is very interesting, and we keep receiving this question from Cannabis Labs. How to post data to a seed to sale software like Metric?
Sure, yes. I often get that question at conferences. And the answer sometimes is that they do manually with that spreadsheet. And this could be really tedious, or you can use a LIMS. So a suitable LIMS must be able to integrate with state monitoring compliance systems such as Metric. I think that's the most common. And this will help tremendously in the traceability of your products. So a good LIMS can integrate this. So this can be really useful, and of course will be easier for the analyst because it's really tedious to do everything manually. So automatically LMs do it for you.
Thank you. Great. Attendees, you can still post your questions. We have some time. If you want to see a webinar on any specific topic, you can send it to us via email. Our email address is support@cloudlims.com. We'll be happy to do a webinar on your suggested topic. Okay. Let's wait for a couple of minutes to see if there are any further questions. Not only extraction facilities, I believe, Martha, that cannabis testing labs also use LIMS a lot
Yes, they do,
to meet
because it's,
compliance requirements, automation, and data management requirements.
yeah, it's easier. It's a lot of easier to all the analysts, the technicians, the lab managers to have everything automatically on their system. It's really cool because we have in a laboratory we have a lot of instruments, we have a lot of reagents, we have a lot of stuff, and it's really difficult to track them all in, well, manually, and so it's better to have everything automatically in a system who alerts you if someone is not complaining or someone needs some more training or an instrument is failing with calibration or maintenance. So everything there automatically is really useful for all the lab managers. I know some lab managers that will kill for something like this in my country. So if you have access to this, you should try it because it's really easier and it boosts efficiency in your lab.
I agree with you, Martha, completely. Okay, so there are no further questions today. So uh, we'll end this webinar. If you have any questions, you can send it to us via email as well. I'll repeat my email address. It's support@cloudlims.com. I would like to thank you all for joining us today and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Bruno. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.